Hi, I'm Simon Owens from The Simon Owens Show, heard on the 9 Radio Network. That's AM. The quarter hour. What a great job you're doing, Wade. I love every episode. Hey, a quick plug for my own podcast, which is only 5 minutes long, which is called Name Tales. Check that out too. But let's get me out of the way, because Wade's only got about 14 and a half minutes left. So I'll go. Good on you, Wade. Keep up the excellent work, mate.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for being one of our P1s, and good luck with your new podcast. Today on the quarter hour, the UK radio ratings, who's winning, who's losing, plus an Australian radio show that got a Super Bowl halftime exclusive. Dear listener, hello. If you're watching or listening from Australia, we get the ratings 8 times a year, so we have a lot of fun. But over in the motherland, it's somewhat less than that. They only get them quarterly. But the latest Rager ratings are out. I don't know if you say it Rager or I feel like saying Rager, but that feels like my Australian accent coming in. We'll get Matt to explain properly. Matt Deegan is the host of the Media Club. I think, to be honest, the world's best media podcast. It looks amazing, great guests, it sounds brilliant, and he's an astute observer of things in the media. So I'm thrilled he's joined us now. G'day, Matt. How are you?
Hello, great to be here.
You're not coming to us today from your beautiful set that you usually are, because it's quite late at night. So I'm assuming you're at home, right?
Yes, this is the home view. This is the home view today. So it's about 10:30 here in the UK.
Thank you for doing this so late. But quickly, before we get on to radio ratings, how long has your Media Club podcast been going?
So the podcast itself has been going on with a few different hosts over the years. Nearly 20 years. It was like one of the first podcasts. I've done it, I think, for about 3 or 4 years. And it's a weekly media show, and we try and cover audio, telly, journalism, and a bit of advertising as well. So a real mix.
It is a real mix, and that's what I love about it. There's a lot of variety around it, and the set that you've created there, that looks like it cost you £1 million.
So one of the things I do is I run a podcast marketing agency, and so if we were making a podcast, we have to do the things we tell our clients to do, which is make their podcast look good. So we use a great location. So in the UK, quite a few video-specific podcast studios have popped up. There's quite a few in London, and we have a beautiful one at Podshop Studios who make us look really nice.
Oh, lovely. Well, I'm heading over to London the next month, so I want to pop in and see that set because seriously, it looks like a film set to me. And, you know, a lot of podcasts just do the pot plants right, but don't get the lighting and other things right. So I'm glad you do. All right, so let's talk about, is it Rager? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, so Rager. Yeah, Rager.
Okay, right.
Less of having a Rager than just being, it's just Rager.
Well, I guess it depends if you had a good survey or not. You might be a Rager or not. So they come out every quarter. What did the latest survey results tell us?
So we're in a really consolidated market here in the UK, where we've got 3 big operators, the BBC, Global and Bauer. And Global's the biggest commercial operator, a bit ahead of Bauer. BBC's the strongest broadcaster. So I was having a look at the share, and so the BBC have 43% of the market, Global 26, Bauer 19. And so that adds up to, can't do the maths, that adds up to about 89%. And all of the rest of radio, so all of the other local stations, anybody else in the market only has sort of like 12% to play with. So we're like super consolidated. So we always look at how the BBC does. Biggest station in the UK is BBC Radio 2, which is sort of an AC station, is the kind of closest way to describe it. It has just over 12 million listeners. So pretty much the equivalent of all radio listening in Australia. That's yes. Just listening to Radio 2. In London, slightly different. So London, slightly more upmarket audience. So Radio 4, which is the sort of heritage news and speech service, is the number 1 station there. When we look commercially, we've got big commercial radio groups. So we have stations like Capital and Heart, from Global, and stations like Hits Radio and Greatest Hits Radio from Bauer. This book, actually, sort of everybody did quite badly. It's one of those where sort of everyone's down, and it's hard to sort of to look at who's done well. What's kind of interesting here is we have a very developed digital radio market. So when we think about the size of our audience, only 25% of radio listening in the UK is to analog radio, so AM and FM. All the rest is DAB, listening on the internet, and smart speakers, and a bit of digital television. So hugely digital audience, and reach wise, it's sort of about 80% reach. Listen to some form of digital radio each week. So we have abandoned sort of AM and FM, and that means there are far more stations in people's repertoires. That's one of the things we see here, and also what we see is that digital only radio stations can do as well as some of those legacy services. So I was having a look in the UK, having a look in London, and BBC Six Music, which is a sort of indie service, ninth most popular service by share in the capital, and that's a digital only radio station. So we're in a very multimedia market.
Right, and I assume that from an advertising perspective is that the fact that most of it is, or a majority of it's listened on digital, that makes measurement far more accurate, right?
Well, radio measurement is always an interesting challenge. Radar itself is a survey diary-based methodology. Now, most of those diaries are filled in on a phone or a computer, but if you still want to do it with a pen and pencil, you can. They've combined that with some internet streaming as well, and they've had panels at different times too. Obviously, if you are streamed, you can provide pretty accurate data that way. We have both the two big radio groups, Global and Bauer, have quite advanced digital ad insertion systems. Obviously, lots of radio groups have them across the world. And some of the newer entrant radio stations, I was talking to the people that run Boom Radio, which is a sort of new entrant for the over 60s. They make money the traditional way of network sold spot advertising and then digital insertion, and they're not a dissimilar amount. So it's kind of money wise, it can be quite similar. So for those stations, they live very much in a digital marketing world.
Right. Okay. And in terms of then, so the formats, is there any trends that you're seeing? We often hear at the moment of the US that classic rock is doing really well, which could be a demographic thing, or it also could be a fact that classic rock is in from a zeitgeist perspective. Are you seeing anything with formats across the UK that gives us a trend?
So the biggest challenge for UK radio is younger audiences. They're still around the same amount of young audiences are listening to the radio. So reach, what we call reach here, so Cume, is at a pretty good level, but the time spent listening, the hours are dropping. And that's been difficult for stations like Radio 1. So they are BBC Radio 1, so youth station competing with the multimedia world, competing with lots of radio stations here in the UK. In London, your digital radio will pick up 150 radio stations. So that's how many are on the broadcast radio dial. So Radio 1's had some trouble. A station, Kiss FM, that lots of people might be aware of, used to be kind of Kiss 100, gave up its FM license for another radio station in the group. And what you saw was actually both the big commercial radio groups are putting all of their effort really into older formatted radio stations, as that's where the hours is, that's where the money is. And even for a station like Capital FM, which is kind of like a big kind of pop station, you listen to that, it's playing much older music than it used to. So we're definitely seeing that. But like I said before, the format that's done well and the business that's kind of been created from nowhere is a station for the over 65s called Boom. Now, historically, we would have said that isn't a station that you could do well at from a commercial basis. That's why there aren't loads of those services. But again, that kind of combination of very loyal audience, they've got the highest average hours of any radio station in the country, because older people, they've got some time on their hands, but also there's a lot of digital listening, and so they can kind of monetize that directly as well. So I think it's older formats that are doing well. We saw Greatest Hits Radio launch a few years ago, which was Bauer's attempt at doing a sort of an oldies service. They stole a lot of presenters from the BBC as well. So they're following the money, which is older audience.
Yeah, great. That makes sense. And I think I've said on this pod before that I really feel like 25-54 is outdated as a demographic. It was a TV buying demographic in the 80s. 35-64 is probably where it's at. I mean, some could argue it's even sort of 40 to 59. But I think there's an audience there that, what we used to think is old, because I'm not giving any secrets away here, Matt, but I'm about to enter a new demographic. I don't think they're as old as we remember them being. And I think that a lot of purchasing power, a lot of time spent with traditional media is still being consumed. It's usually just the perception or bias of some ad buyers, particularly in agencies, that think you have to chase these sort of younger audiences. But I don't know, 35-64 feels like where it's at for me.
The danger, of course, is that you become self-fulfilling, and so you make your services older, doesn't attract younger audiences, and you might be fine with 35-year-olds now, but the people you pass your radio station on to might not like you very much in 10 years' time.
Yeah, and look, I think, newspapers have gone through the similar thing. And for those listening who don't know what a newspaper is, it's basically the internet printed. And a newspaper is now read in paper form by much older people, but the digital content's still being consumed. So look, again, we talk about delivery mechanisms, but unique IP, great creators with great content still wins the day. Hey, if everyone had a bad RAJAR result, does that mean pubs were quiet that night? Pizza delivery shops were empty? What happened?
So the thing about a consolidated market is there's always something in the group that's going up. So something going up and something going down. So if you look at the big radio groups, actually fairly static, and even over the last kind of 4 quarters, over the last year, fairly static, because they can kind of stomach sort of ups and downs. So it's much less fun, and it's much less fun than the Australian market. When you look at competition in regions, we just don't really have that anymore. Something we used to have when I started in radio. But everyone looks at the national number. What are these network stations delivering nationally for their big evil group owners?
Well, you said evil, not me. Hey, Matt, your podcast, and you can watch it live as well, The Media Club. How often does it come out?
So weekly on a Friday morning. You can get it wherever you're listening to this on YouTube as well.
Matt Deegan there from The Media Club. Please check it out, because a lot of stuff that Matt talks about has international ramifications. You learn a lot just from hearing from guests talking about their experience. A recent highlight was the episode with Goalhanger, one of the senior executives there, talking about their business model. So if you're interested in podcasting business models or interested in Goalhanger as a company, they're the company that do The Rest is History, The Rest is Politics, and all of those franchises. Check out The Media Club with Matt. Okay, time for some liner notes to finish us off. I plugged this earlier, benchmarks. Now, I think benchmarks get a bad name. I feel like what we used to think benchmarks meant was like at 8:10 every morning we have to do the secret sound. And yes, that's appointment listening, and we still have to do that to a degree. But I think a benchmark now has kind of been redefined. And I think the world's best benchmark right here, right now, is actually not on radio. It relates to this. That's Role Model saying, "Where's my Sally tonight?" from his song called Sally When the Wine Runs Out. And what happens in that song is there's a bridge in between two of the verses. And in the bridge, he sings it, and we get a celebrity guest, Sally, who comes on the stage and dances. It's a benchmark because it sets an anticipation in the audience. They know it's coming. They're interested to do it, and they're tuning in or leaning into that segment or that moment in a concert or on stage or on TV. And the variety of it. It's going to be something different. We know there's going to be a Sally, but we don't know who it is. So I think if you're still thinking benchmarks aren't for you, or you think that's a bit old school in terms of radio programming talk, have a look at how benchmarks are being reinvented. There's lots of them. And in our P1 discussion group on WhatsApp, for all the P1s of the pod, we're going to be talking about benchmarks over the next week. I'm going to feature some comments on great benchmarks that you've seen and what you think about benchmarks as a whole. Hey, if you're not a P1, jump on. Just go to thequarterhour.com. You can sign up to be a P1. We've got a WhatsApp group. You can enter contests. We do lots of fun stuff over there. There's emails that go out. I do a regular email with some analysis on radio as well. So that's at thequarterhour.com. A couple of quick shout outs. K-Rock in Geelong on this morning, Thursday morning, if you're listening to this live, or if you're listening back, it was on Thursday. They played the full Dawson's Creek song as a memory to James Van Der Beek, who sadly passed away. A lot of radio shows would have just played a slight grab and talked over the song, but they played the full song, and congrats to the breakfast show there, who are Tom and Loggy. They did a great job with the Dawson's Creek stuff. Another quick shout out to an Australian radio show that got a Super Bowl halftime exclusive. Have a listen.
How long were you in the bush costume for? Like, did you need to pee? Did you have to get out? Is it hard to get out of the bush?
Dude, I will say this. So on game day, before we went out to the field, I had to piss hella bad.
Water the bush, brother. Just water that bush. Let it grow.
But it's like, to pee, you have to take off it's a pretty like stacked system to get that bush on because you have to like there's a whole tunic piece, there's a whole backpack piece, there's a whole like all your arms, and like to pee you have to take it all off.
That's the Chrissy Swan Show with Jack. They're interviewing someone who was one of the pieces of grass. Just made me laugh. Pieces of grass in Bad Bunny's halftime show. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about and you think I'm smoking grass, go and have a watch of the halftime show and then check out that interview on the Chrissy Swan podcast because it was great. Who would have thought to go and interview someone who was one of the pieces of grass? If you can't get Bad Bunny, get the grass. That's the motto of that story. Next week, a couple of big guests on the Quarter Hour podcast. On Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to the radio show out of New Zealand that is killing it on the socials. Like, I mean, killing it. The stuff they're doing on socials and how it works with their on-air content. We're going to talk about that. And also Mark Ritson, one of the world's leading authorities on marketing. He's going to be discussing radio and the effectiveness of radio at a commercial radio and audio event next week. I'm going to it. I'm going to interview him on the pod and you'll hear him exclusively on Thursday. But for now, dear listener, that's been the Quarter Hour.